Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nikki and I am the Managing Director of Ingenious Personnel, which is a recruitment company. If this is your very first time joining us, this is where we talk about recruitment, we talk about how to get employed, we talk about everything that has to do with employment. And on today's topic, we're talking about the most uncomfortable topic, which is salary negotiation. So, salary negotiation is the very last process within the recruitment process. Okay. And like I said, it is an uncomfortable topic because a lot of people do not like to talk about money. That is exactly what we're talking about today, how to go about negotiating your worth to the employer. Stay tuned. To start off today's discussion, while I was preparing this content, I came across a very interesting topic or case study that was done by Harvard Business Review, and it is called The Cost of Not Negotiating. In this case study, they talk about the two different genders, males and females, and they speak about how we as females, we leave a lot of money on the table because we do not negotiate our worth. And they compare females to males, and they go to say that males are much more comfortable negotiating salaries versus women. I did find that quite interesting, and I'm going to leave a link down below of this article so that you can go and read about it. It's really interesting. It gives you pointers on how you can negotiate your worth in an interview. Okay, so I also just want to make note that not all positions are worth negotiating. There's some positions that you absolutely cannot negotiate. Those are purely based on the number of years of experience and the type of position that you are applying for. So now let's get on to tip number one. Tip number one, before you start the process, the recruitment process, before you even get to the salary negotiation stage, you need to know what is your walk away number. What does that mean? The walk away number is the number that you are left with at the end of the day that you can comfortably say, I can live off this figure. This is after you have paid all your benefits. This is after you have paid all your expenses. And then you have this number. This is called the walkaway number. Okay, you need to know your walkaway number, especially if you are in the negotiating process. Now, how do you figure this out? When you receive your offer, make sure that you know each and every benefit that will be deducted from your salary. This could be medical aid, provident fund, tax, make sure there aren't any clauses, because some companies have also got some hidden clauses where you maybe would be paying for parking. These things are not, things like parking are not mentioned in the interview process. Hence why you should be asking these things before you actually accept the offer. So make sure that your benefits, you know how much you're going to be covering for your medical aid, you know how much the company is contributing towards your medical aid, and you know how much you're paying for your provident fund, etc., etc. And then you will be left with your walkaway number. So tip number one is know your walk away number. Now let's move on to tip number two. Tip number two. So tip number two what I want us to talk about on tip number 2 is what I come across many, many times when we are at the very last stage of the process, and candidates, some candidates, they don't understand why they netting less. What I mean is that I want to talk about the differences between a cost to company, a basic salary, your gross, and a net, because a lot of people don't understand the differences. Recruiters, hiring managers, they use these terms when they are closing deals. Now, I'm going to try and break down each of these terms to the best of my ability, just to make you understand what that means. Now, your gross salary, which could also be referred to as your cost to company, is the actual figure of your payslip. For instance, if they say we are offering you 20,000 gross, that is your gross salary. But if they say, which most companies do, is they will say we're offering you 20,000 cost to company. Now, cost to company means your package is 20,000. But on your payslip, how this will then be broken down. Okay. Not that 20,000 includes the company benefits that the company will be contributing towards you as the employer. As the employee, sorry. So your payslip will be broken down as follows. Bear in mind, with my figures, it will not be accurate. I'm just trying to make an example. So if you are earning 20,000 on your payslip, what you'll see under basic salary will not be 20,000. So you will maybe see, depending on your benefits, 15,000, for instance. Then from that 15,000, they will then include medical aid, 1,000, provident fund, 300, or provident fund, let's say 2,000, and then they will work at all those benefits that you're getting from the company into the 20,000 that is supposed to be your cost to company that is on offer. So the benefits that the company includes is part of your cost to company. So if they make reference about a cost to company, it includes the company benefits. But if you get a different employer that talks about gross with no benefits, and they say to you, we're offering you 20,000 with no benefits. Now, what's going to come out of that 20,000 will be your tax, as well as your UIF, unless the company has other things that are compulsory. But your pay slip will not be like the person who has cost to company. Your pay slip will say 20,000 as your basic salary. Hope I make sense. Because the person who's got a cost to company, their basic will be 15,000, but because they've got the company benefit, which is cost to company, it then gets deducted. And if you add the cost to company, which is the company benefits, add that together, you then get the 20,000. Okay, so that's the different type. Now your net, when recruiters are asking you, what's your salary? They're not referring to your net. They're referring to either your cost to company or your gross, not your net. Your net salary is what comes into your bank account. So this is after all the deductions have gone through, your medical aid, everything has gone through. The money that lands in your bank account is your net. This is not the figure you give to a hiring manager. This is not the figure you give to a recruiter. When they ask you about how much are you earning at the moment, what they want you to say is to give them the gross salary or the cost to company salary, because That is what we're negotiating on. We're not negotiating on the net, which is the money that comes into your bank account. I hope that makes sense. Now let's move on to tip number 3, which is our next tip. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is starting the salary negotiation too early in the process. You do not want to start negotiating early in the process, because chances are whoever is assisting you with the process does not know exactly what the position earns or what the position pays. So if you are really curious, you could ask, how much is it paying, or what is the range of this position? That's a better way to ask it than saying, give me a figure, how much is it? Because it could work for you and it could not work for you. Remember, you still have to negotiate either way. And if they say to you, this position pays 40,000, and you are on 42,000, you decline the position. How do you know that they would not have negotiated with you? So rather than asking what is the salary, you could ask what is the range of this position. The recruiter then will say this position pays between this X amount to this X amount. They will give you a budget. That way you can still negotiate. Okay. However, if they say to you, this position pays this amount to this amount, and you know that you are over that bracket, you could then say, is there any room to negotiate? And if they say yes, then you can proceed. But if they say there's absolutely no room to negotiate, and you know that this position is not even within your walkaway number, then rather don't waste anybody's time and decline the job. So that is tip number 3. Now let's move on to tip number 4. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is, what do you say in an interview when you are asked, what is your expectations? How much are you looking for? This is what you need to say. You never ever give them a figure. You never ever say, this is how much I want. Or if they ask you, what's your expectations? How much are you looking for? Never ever give a figure, because once you give a figure, you're tying yourself down. What you can say, or what you should say, is, this is the minimum, this is the maximum that I will negotiate. That way, you are opening up the net to negotiate. However, be reasonable with your expectations. If you are currently earning 50,000, a reasonable amount would be to ask for maybe 65, 70 maybe. You cannot be earning 10,000 and asking for 50,000. That's not being reasonable. So give a reasonable amount. Don't come across as greedy. But even when you do give a reasonable amount, emphasize your value, which will be my next tip. Now let's move on to tip number 5. Tip number 5. Now, this is very important in the negotiating stage. As much as you want to negotiate money, make this about your value, the value that you're bringing into the company. Emphasize on your value. You will say, for instance, I want 60,000 Rand because I bring, or I possess, the following skills. You talk about your value. What needs to come out when in this process of negotiating salary is your value, because your value justifies why you should be paid that amount. So you must always make sure that you're bringing out your value, you're bringing out your achievements, you're bringing out your qualifications, so that this is what's talking in the negotiating stages. It's not about just saying, this is the figure I want, thank you very much. It's about, this is the figure that I want because of the value that I have. I've done this, I've saved this company money, I did this. That you are bringing in, or you showing them the value that you have and why you need or you deserve to be paid the X amount of salary that you are asking for. Value, value, value is what needs to back up the salary negotiation. Now let's move on to our next step. So, there's so much that we can talk about when we talk about salary negotiation, and I don't feel just doing one episode of this is enough. What I might do is to do another episode of salary negotiation and just call it salary negotiation part 2, because the tips that I'm sharing today is we only covering the surface of the negotiation process. Okay. My next tip is you need to know when to back off and stop. Because the last thing you want to do is to keep on pushing or keep on negotiating, because some employers will get to a point where they cannot negotiate with you anymore. Okay. Especially if you don't have a rare skill. If you don't have a rare skill, you can't keep on negotiating and pushing back and pushing back. How do you know when to stop? I would say, and please, this is my own personal opinion, I would say if you push back once and they come back with another offer, and if you're still not happy, you push back again and they engage with you, or there's a bit of hesitant, you'll be able to tell within the process. Twice is enough. If you really, really want to push more, you can push one more time, but then you need to get to a stop. Because what some employers will do, they will come back to you, they will say, we cannot meet your expectation, we cannot negotiate with you any further, and you will lose the deal. So you don't want to lose the offer, or you don't want to start at the wrong foot with your employer. You want to keep things, things cleared and things moving. So you need to know when to stop the negotiation process. Observe the conversations, because that will tell you when is a good time to stop the negotiations. Now we're going to move on to our very last tip. And my very last tip is, sometimes you will come across an employer that has made you an offer, but maybe there's 2,000 Rand or 3,000 Rand missing from your walkaway number. If you get an instance like this, you need to sit down and think, what is really, really important to you? Is it the career or the experience that you're going to be getting from that specific employer? Is it maybe the benefits that come along with this position? Is this a company that you've always wanted to work for? Maybe you've always wanted to work with the hiring manager, or with the manager of whom this position reports directly into. So there's also a lot of cases where sometimes it's not only about the package, it's also about the benefits, your career, the experience that will come with this position. But again, only negotiate if this is a few thousands Rand within your budget, because if you take a huge drop in your salary and you negotiate, you will not stay, because you were never happy with the package. So if you can take a few thousand rand and look at the bigger picture, then do that. I'm going to stop today, but I will definitely do a second episode of salary negotiations. But for the purpose of the video, I have to stop here. And I would like to thank you for listening and staying with me. And I will see you on my next episode. Thank you, and please do stay safe.